Welcome to today's presentation, using the Fieldbook app for data collection in the field. My name is Clémence Boutry and I work at the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture, FiBL. So first, how did we come up with this topic? Because we were looking for alternatives to the paper and pen data collection in the field, which is still the most common way to collect data in the field. But you can also do it using a digital tool. So why? Because it simplifies the manual recording of trait data. So you set up your traits once and you field once in a season. If it changed the next year, you set up the field again. But once you did that, you save a lot of time collecting your data, especially if you do the same traits over and over again. It also can increase data accuracy and integrity because you can do presets for your traits, and this way you can only select this data and not enter anything else. This also helps to harmonize the data collection across different people or different institutes, and it's much easier to then integrate your data into a database. You also have the option to add digital information such as photos or GPS coordinates. Today, we will present you the Fieldbook app, which is a free and open source app. So that's for sure the main advantage. It works offline in the field, and it's specifically designed for phenotyping. So you have the possibility to set up your fields. A field contains all your metadata for your orchard, let's say the tree number, the variety name, the treatment, and your traits, for example, flowering or apple scab. You can export your data in standard formats, CSV, Excel, and you can also integrate it into the breeding API, which is like a breeding database. I will not go into this today because for this you need an IT person to set it up for you. Well, the disadvantages, it's primarily available for or developed for Android devices. So if you have an iPhone, there is a version for iOS, but it's not as good. I would not recommend it. It's better to really use an Android device. If you don't have one, you might want to consider buying a device, maybe a tablet for your research group, which you can then share amongst people who collect data. So the export is still manual, except if you use the breeding API, but we will not go into this today. And Fieldbook might not be the most ideal for very large, very complex trials with a large data set, a large amount of traits, or maybe where you need to be more flexible, where there is a lot of change from season to season, or for example, in breeding, when you need to access more data, so not just collect data, but also retrieve data, see what was this previous score in the past year, or what about information on the parents, things like this, but it's very suited for trials that don't change much from year to year and where the traits are always assessed in the same manner from year to year. So when you start using Fieldbook, you need a bit more investment in setting up the traits and the fields, but then you save a lot of time when you collect the data. So why do this webinar today? Because we know people only adopt a new tool when they learn to use it. So today it's very technical. I will go step by step through the features of Fieldbook, and show you how it is used. The basic functioning of the app is, as you can see, you have a trait, you have some details to this trait, which you can yourself add. For example, what is the assessment scale of this trait? And you have the trial information such as the tree number or the variety name or the treatment or the orchard. And then basically you go one by one through your plots or your trees. You assess all your traits, so you can switch from one trait to another and go tree by tree to assess all your data. You can download the Fieldbook app on Google Play. There is also a manual as PDF, which you can download. So these are the menu options you have when you open the app. And I will go through step 1 to 4. How do you prepare and import your field file? How do you define your traits? How do you collect the data? And then how do you export the data, also with the different options on how to export your data. So first, the field. So the field contains your metadata, orchard name, treatment, tree number, variety name, and it needs to contain a unique identifier. This column also needs to be unique across fields. Be careful for this. Here in the example, the unique identifier is just the different columns containing the metadata combined with the underscore. It's important that the unique identifier doesn't contain any special characters, no blank space, no percentage, no special letters. So otherwise you will have troubles with importing your field in the app. It will give you an error. So with the import, you have different options. Either you import your field from a local storage on a folder on your device or on the cloud, or you can also create this field file directly in the app, though I would not recommend it. It's much easier to create it in an Excel file or a CSV and then just import it into the app. So to open the menu of the import, you just click on the plus button where you see the red arrow. If you don't see the different options of import source, you go to the settings and you can say import source, check or tick always ask, or you can set it as a standard to always go to the local storage. The local storage is your field import folder within the Fieldbook folder on your device. There you can put your CSV or your Excel, which then when you click on plus, so add a field in the app, it will give you the list. You select the file you want to import. You also in the drop-down menu select what is your unique identifier column and you click import. So this is an example of 6 fields that have been important, where the first field is selected, meaning it's activated for then collecting data for this field. Now let's go on to defining the traits. So either you create the traits newly, or you already have set them up and you just want to import them from a file, either local or on the cloud, wherever you have stored your trait file. So this way you can share, set up traits among different people collecting data on different devices, and it saves you some time. So for creating new traits, let's see what traits are available. You can set up numeric traits, percentage, categorical, date, Boolean, true, false, text, photo, you have a counter option. Rust rating is the disease rating, which there is a standard file that you can adapt to your needs. You can also add audio. And in the following slides, I will show you some example of these different trait types. So the Boolean trait is true, false. You can set the default to either false or true. Very straightforward. You can always add details to any trait you do, containing some information that might be useful when you collect your data. Then you have categorical. The trait is a single choice trait, meaning there is only one of the categories that you set up that you can select at a time. It doesn't allow you different categories to be set. So that's quite useful for avoiding errors. In this example, you see categories from 1 to 9 for a disease rating. And in example, the disease rating, the scale number 2 has been selected. You also, again, in the details can add useful information. In this case, for every 1 to 9, you have the percentage of disease that matches the score. Here's another example with more options. Here I just defined categories from 0 to 100 with increments of 5 for maybe aphid infestation. But you could also do increments of 10 or 20. This is really, every user can define the traits and the options for every categories that are needed. Then there is another type of trait, which is the multicat. So this would be the multiple choice, where you can select multiple choices at once. It will show them as choice 1, 2 points, choice 3, 2 points, choice 4 in this example. Maybe you have a use for this trait. I haven't used it for now in the variety testing. Then there is the counter. You can see the small circle with the -1 and the big circle with the +1. So every time you click on it, on the +1, it will add 1. -1, it will subtract 1. This trait might be useful if you maybe count pollinators. So in insect ecology, it can be a useful trait. Then you have the location, which basically gives you the exact coordinates where you are standing with the device. And all you have to do is click on the icon with the 2 circles, and it will save this exact position. So this is per tree. So for each tree, you have the GPS location. Then you have numeric traits, where you can save numbers with decimals. In this example, we have stem circumference. You can set a minimum and a maximum value. Here, the minimum is set to 0 because the stem circumference cannot be negative. You could also set the minimum to 5 if you want. And the maximum is 100. You can also set the maximum to lower, maybe 50, if you already have an idea of the range of stem circumference values that make sense. This is very useful to avoid typos. So it doesn't allow you, for example, to enter 120 centimeters diameter. In the details, you can add some information like the measurement scale that is used. So here it's in centimeters. You could also, for example, add stem circumference is always measured 30 centimeters above ground. Anything you want, basically. Then the percentage trait is goes from 0 to 1 with this shifter that with your finger you can move to the left or to the right. And it gives you then a very precise number. Here in the example, it's at 27. Maybe it's useful for qualitative data where you still need, in the end, a bit of quantitative. Let's say taste testing, and you have crunchiness. So you move to less 0 or 100 more crunchy, and in the end, you have an average among all the participants using this trait, just as an example. Then you can, of course, add text. Either you type the text or you go to the settings and you enable speech to text. So then you can click on the where the little red arrow is pointing. You tap there and you speak, and it will translate your words into text. Here it's important that you select the language. So here it's selected to English. If you select another language than the one you talk, you might have a funny result. Then there is another trait, which is the angle. So it will take the angle of your device. So if you hold your device parallel to a leaf, for example, you can then measure the leaf angle. And to save the angle, you just press on the angle icon. You can also do pictures, and this is quite helpful. Then the picture is directly linked to your tree or your plant or your plot, whatever is the unit of your assessment. And you can choose between the default Fieldbook camera or your own device camera. So then, of course, the picture quality depends on the camera you have on your device. You can choose the resolution of your picture. You can also choose if you want to crop your pictures or not. You can also set this. So if you always want to take a picture only as a square, only a restricted area, then it will take this square for all the following pictures you take as well. So for this, you have to enable crop equal true, as you see on the left. Once you have set up all your traits, you can save them, export them, and this way you can share traits amongst colleagues, so you don't have to do all the work all over again when you use another device. Now let's move on to collecting data. So the first step is you have this list of traits and you select these traits for which you want to collect data. You can also in the settings add profiles for the different people that collect data. You set first name, last name, or just an acronym or a shortcut. And every time you collect data, it will ask you, is it still the last person that collected data or another? And we have a drop-down menu just selecting the person. This is how it looks like when once you go to the collect menu of Fieldbook. You have your trait, you have the details of your trait, and you have where the 4 blue arrows on the left point, 4 possibilities to display columns of your field file. For example, I like to have just below my trait the tree number and the variety name, and then you still have 2 more options of display on the top left corner. There you can put the treatment or maybe the orchard name or any other useful information. Now, something quite useful is the switch to data grid viewing option. So once you click on the data grid icon on the top of the screen, you can have an overview as a table where you can have one column, the first column, be displayed and only one. So be mindful about which column you choose and how you name, for example, your identifier. The characters displayed are limited to 15 characters and then it's cut. So what I like to do is in my identifier always start with the tree number underscore variety name. This ensures that I have the two most important information to know where I am in my orchard. And then the following columns are all the traits that you have selected that for which you want to collect data. As you can see, the gray cells are the trees for which there is no data yet collected. And here we have some scorings of 1 given to several trees. If you don't see this data grid icon, you have to go to the settings, go to features, and tick on data grid. You also in the settings, you can choose how you want the order of your data entry to be. You have two options that you can select. So you have the auto advance entry, which means when you cycle through all the traits, it automatically goes to the next tree. And the auto reset traits option is when going to the next tree, it automatically resets to trait number 1. Just try it on yourself and it will be much clearer. You can, in the settings, also enable repeated measures if you want to collect data at different time points for the same trait and the same field. For example, apple scab, you have 3 assessments over the season, 3 different dates, but still the same trait in the same field. So you have to take on repeated measures, and then instead of like overwriting your previous assessment, it just adds another column of values for the same trait. And then the last point is export data. So to export pictures, it's important to select the button bundle media data with export file. And then in the wherever you export your data in this folder, you will see an extra folder that contains all your pictures. For the format of the data export, you have two options. You have the database option and the table option. So the database option is when it's basically the long format. You have all your traits in one column and all the values in another column. And the table format is the wide format, where every trait is in a separate column. And within the column, in the rows, you have your values. For the different export options, you can choose also here either always ask, and then every time you export, you can choose where you want to export, or you set it to the local storage, and then it will automatically or by default always store it in the local storage. So here, option 1, always ask, you could save your data, for example, in the cloud, which is very useful. So from the device to the cloud, and then from the computer, you also have access to the cloud. So this is a wireless data sharing between devices. There are also other options, like you can send it to your email or put it on the drive or whatever location is safe to use for your institution, organization. Maybe you have an own cloud option, which is of course the best in regards to data security. If you choose the local storage, it will be on your device within the folder Field Export, which is in the Fieldbook folder. And then all your Excels and CSVs and folders with your pictures will just be there. Then you can connect your device to your computer and just copy from the device to your computer all your files. You can also in the settings tick the option Enable File Sharing. This means every time you export, a dialog pop-up for file sharing will pop up. And yeah, you can, for example, say, okay, I want to just send the data to my email. This is the easiest for me, or any other options you want. Once you're finished with your data collection, you can go back to the fields menu and click on your field, and then you have a quick overview of the number of observations you have recorded for each trait. What is the progress of your assessment? Did you assess 100%, so all the trees you have in your field file, or maybe only 80%, and other useful quick overview information. So that was it for my little introduction to Fieldbook. I can now show you quickly in the interactive way how the Fieldbook app works. So here we are. This is the menu of the app. When you open the app, you have your fields. So let's have a look. Here we can select the field for which we want to access traits. Let's take the first field. Then we go to our traits. We have the list of all our traits, which we can say, okay, I want this trait, maybe this trait, and photos. Okay. And I click collect. And I start with row number 1 and variety Gala. Now I want to switch this. I want to have the tree number, which is more useful to me. Tree number variety, and on top I would like, let's say, the training system and the row number. So it's in German, but I'm translating while talking to you. So here we have flower intensity. The descriptor is 1 to 9 with the options of all the numbers in between 1 and 9. 0 means there is no tree. 1 is there is no flowers. 3, a little flowers. 5, medium. 7, lots of flowers. 9, very much. The maximum numbers of flowers a tree can bear, looking at the buds. Now I can also go to another trait. Okay, scab, a disease rating from 1 to 9 with the percentage of affected leaves, usually for scab. And I can say, okay, it's a 2. And then it's at 2. I can switch to the data grid view. And then I have an overview of the data already collected. So for flowering, I went already through. Scab, I'm just starting. I gave 1 value for the first tree, but I still have other trees to do. I didn't take any pictures yet. And now I can easily scroll, and let's say I want to go to another tree which is far away, or just changing the row or walk across my orchard. I can say, okay, now I want to continue with tree number 442. And then I just click on the cell, and here I am. I just jumped and can enter data for this tree now. That was it for the collection of the data. Let me show you picture maybe. Sorry, go back to collect, scab, and then photo. So you don't see much, you see my desk, but basically if I click on here, it will take a picture. Yep. So also here on the top right, you have this little lock. So when it's locked, it's frozen. You cannot change the data anymore. So you have to unlock it by just clicking on it, and you can add another photo, or maybe you want to correct something here. It automatically locked again. Let's unlock. Instead of a 7, maybe it was only a 6. So you change to 6. And then for exporting the data, go to export. You can choose either database table, which columns, all columns, or only unique identifier, only active traits or all traits. And you can choose to overwrite or not the previous export. What is really helpful is that the file name always contains the date and the time. So you have the hour, the minutes, and the seconds, which means that every time you export, it creates a new file name, and this avoids unintentionally overwriting a previous export you had. I tested it, so even if you have overwrite previous export, you have the different file name, it should not overwrite your previous export. But to be safe, you can of course untick this. That's it for today, and thank you for your attention.